with AI, like you still have to be a curator and you have to be an arbiter of good taste. And I think that's where people get into trouble. It's like, oh, I'm going to have ChatGPT write all my Instagram captions. It's like, sure, use it as an aid, but to use it as a substitute, it's like saying, I'm just going to feed my baby's sugar cereal for every meal of the day. It's like, will they sustain on that? Yes, like that's fine, but you're not getting nutrition. You know what I mean? Like there's no balance in that diet. Like if we're just going to give the like Pop-Tarts version of copywriting, like of course it's going to fall flat, but if you can train it and work with it, and same with Midjourney, like I think now having your own like stylization and your personalization is huge because then you can actually get known for a style, even if you're not the one like making the image, quote unquote, although you are. But same with logo design. I mean, I think you could have this debate too. It's like, oh yeah, you can put into a logo generator. It's not going to be branding. Like there's so many, you got to hire the creative that can mishmash all the crazy ideas together. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. I have Sarah in person today.
Hi, Michelle.
We are sharing one microphone because we couldn't figure it out, but it's going to be good nonetheless. I'm so excited that you're here. You have so much to share with us. But for anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us who you are, what you do, who you help?
My name is Sarah Mammon. I am the founder of the Deckery, which is a presentation design agency that I just officially launched. And we helped mid-range startups to enterprise brands with their pitch decks and presentations to help them raise capital or kind of get their internal presentations top notch, whatever it might be.
Amazing. We actually have a fun backstory because we met in college and then kind of knew each other, but didn't really, and then reconnected. But from your point of view, how did you find your way into like MKW Creative Co. universe?
Well, this is a story. So I think you found me on LinkedIn after we graduated and you had a internship that you were hiring for.
Yes. Wow.
And I was having a very chaotic day because someone had just hit me with their car. And so I was like going through it and I called you the wrong name over email in my application. So it didn't work out. But here we are nearly a decade later and it worked out for the best because I was just part of the Kiss My Aesthetic community on Facebook. I did multiple challenges for the brand design. So I've just learned so much from you, Michelle. So this is such a full circle moment.
I didn't even remember that happened. So clearly it didn't like leave too much of a mark on me. But wow, that would have been, forever ago. So the Kiss My Aesthetic Facebook group, for anyone who doesn't know it, how do you describe it to people and what do you go to that group for?
Pretty much anything. I mean, if you are a creative professional or you just are interested in the creative field, it is such a place of no judgment, just kind of you're able to chat, kind of pick each other's brains, get your work seen by people. For me, it just helped build my confidence in the design space kind of years ago when I was just starting out. And even now, it's like the needs evolve. So as I build this agency, just hiring, I know there's been so many success stories from your community on kind of the hiring. There's a whole chat where you can kind of put your needs in there. And so that's kind of what I go to for.
The funniest thing about the chat, the Kiss My Aesthetic chat, is like I didn't know it existed. So for people who are in the group, there's a very strict rule of like no posting self-promotion because I did not want the group to be spam. I'm a part of way too many groups that have like so much Facebook spam. So if somebody posts on there and says like, I do this and you should hire me and like their stuff, first of all, it gets deleted. You get a warning and you only get 3 warnings and then you're out of the group. And I think that's what's helped it maintain its quality. But what I didn't know is that there was a side group chat going on for job postings.
Oh, you didn't?
I had no idea.
Well, you have other admins on.
I do. So I have a few admins that kind of like cycle in and out of helping me with the group. But this group chat function is a total job posting board or like kind of like a hire me board. And I thought about it. I was like, do I keep this or do I like shut it down? And my team was like, yeah, who cares? Like, let them have it, you know? But it's interesting how much it's evolved. I want to go back even further to when you were in college because I want to get more into the story of the Deckery and how this came about. You're not a design major.
I'm not a design major. No, I was a business admin major. I started off as econ and it was something, honestly, culturally, I think being Indian, we are not really pushed into, not to say that my dad pressured me into any one field, but we didn't really think about marketing growing up. And so it was something I just sort of fell into when I was pursuing a commercial real estate career at first. And then I fell into the presentations and decided that's really my passion. That's where my passion lies. I don't want to cold call all day. And so that's kind of how this passion began.
So then all your graphic design stuff is self-taught.
Essentially on the job training. I mean, I was a marketing coordinator my first job out of college, and then took a little pivot, thought I was going to be an international school teacher. And then that's how I landed at my previous employer, stuck around there for 9.5 years. So I was really thrown in as into a small company, being kind of their in-house marketer. You wear a lot of hats. And I was fortunate that they weren't just doing kind of listing brochures, your standard stuff. They were also investing in the cannabis industry and the hospitality industry. So I got to start doing brand design and social media and all sorts of aesthetics for all these different industries that were so much fun and that you could kind of apply to various other projects. So there was a lot of lateral learning and a lateral approach to design that I learned.
Right. And then as the in-house person, I've got to assume you didn't have a ton of people who could like show you the ropes totally with this. Like obviously you have mentors in other capacities, yes. But if they're commercial real estate, they're not necessarily going to be like branding experts, exactly. Right? Yeah. So how did you start to find like, okay, these are the people that I can learn branding from, really? Like not even like my stuff or any of the Kiss My Aesthetic stuff, but where did you go to first to be like, okay, I think I want to learn this?
So I think where it comes down to is your environment of where you work and the freedoms that the company is going to give you. So my first company was a large global firm. I was very much pigeonholed into their standards, everything. At the employer I was just at, it was a small family-owned business. They weren't going to invest a ton into like a full agency rebrand or anything like that. So 2-3 years into my role, they were like, okay, yeah, rebrand the company. And so it's a lot of it was just I happened to be in places where I was given opportunities that I was not qualified for. And that is how my whole perspective evolved over the years. And the most fun thing is when you are at a company for so long, you look back at your old projects. I'm sure you do this all the time, and you're just cringing, but there is a beauty in it because you just see how far you've come.
But that also goes to say like all of us are where we're at because we took on projects that we didn't have experience doing. Like everyone has to start from somewhere. Everyone has to start from zero somewhere. So it's great that in your job, not only did they give you the opportunity, but you also had to have the confidence to be like, I'm going to go for it. Like I'm going to try it and it might suck and I might look back on it and cringe. How do you get over that initial like stepping into doing something you haven't done before feeling? Does that come naturally or is that like a muscle you had to learn to flex?
It's definitely somewhat of a muscle, but then also I happened to have a lot of positive verbal affirmations that were given to me throughout the journey at McKinney. And so I think that that's where I just picked up that confidence. I always say this, I would not be where I am today if it weren't for the people around me, hyping me up, supporting me, kind of saying, okay, this needs to be tweaked, that needs to be tweaked. But we had an executive a few years ago, or a handful of years into my career, who really encouraged us to push the boundaries of our marketing and creative design and kind of understanding that most commercial real estate marketing is just pretty boring and how can we level it all up? And so that was when, for example, we pitched to Pepsi and it was, okay, how can we take this from your standard real estate pitch to being kind of an advertising campaign to show that we make things personal? It's communicating that we believe in the personalized approach and we're there to prove that. So we made the cover kind of resemble a Pepsi can. We had the little gradients on the side, we had the condensations on the borders, and it was just this wow factor that was not used to be seen in the industry.
I think that's something I didn't totally consider until I got into design is how ugly slide presentations are, like tragically ugly. And you see why it happens, right? It's because people who aren't design people are trying to communicate a point and they're working within the confines of their own skills, but they don't know how to create design hierarchy or contrast or really like drive a point and how much of that comes across when you are like designing for the content. So you kind of got your experience with the branding. You got some experience, like dabbled obviously in the deck design stuff. How did you realize like, okay, wait, I think I might want to like go out on my own and do this because this has been a long time coming.
A long time coming. I think around 2020, really right when COVID hit, I understood, okay, I do have so much more potential and I really need to be spreading my wings here. And fortunately, I asked the right people for permission and all of that. And so I was able to start side hustling this since then, really. And then it was also when we started working with pretty big agencies on branding projects that, I was nitpicking a lot of. And I knew that I had that in the back of my mind, like on understanding, okay, yes, these people have been in the business a long time. They may have such technical expertise, but I do have something to bring to the table as well. So just a different approach, a different understanding where I've been in house for so long. So I understand what the client wants and I understand what the marketer wants and how to kind of bridge that vision.
And then how do you land on like specifically deck design? Because I think there's kind of this mode of when you start, you kind of become a jack of all trades. Like you learn feet to the fire. I've never done this before. Okay, I guess I'm doing business cards. I've never done this before. Okay, I guess I'm doing a logo. Like you kind of learn everything and then you go, wait, but there's this one thing that I really like. And so I'm going to niche down. For me, that was 2019 where I only took on branding projects. Like I'm not going to do just flyers, t-shirts, like random things. I want to do the whole brand, like start to finish. And that really like propelled me to the next level because I became an expert. Now we can offer more things because we have enough like breadth, right? And we have enough referrals to like get back to some of the smaller projects. But how did you realize like you wanted to start an agency that just focused on decks and not everything? Graphic design hourly and branding and print and social and da 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 da.
So for me, it comes back to that lateral thinking, lateral learning. For me, it was, okay, yes, I love the branding. I love the aesthetics, but I also love pulling from different founders' visions, learning from their different leadership styles. So at this point, I've worked with almost every industry. I've worked with so many founders that are sometimes struggling to kind of communicate their message and vision effectively. And so sometimes we get on the phone together and kind of talk through things and there is just so much collaboration to be had. Whereas for me, branding was so fun. I mean, I remember having this phase for a couple years where I just took photos of all the pretty branding I would see in the wild. And so much of that was from your community and you and seeing your lives and everything. And so for me, that was amazing. And I did some branding projects, but it was honestly such a long process. I equate it to just business owners put so much emotion and think so emotionally about their branding as a whole, where it can sort of drag the process. I'm sure you know this and you've had boundaries put in place to kind of avoid that issue. But for me, it was just not worth what I was charging at the end of the day. So I remember I kind of did branding project for a friend of mine and we kind of started off, okay, I'm going to do your brand strategy. I'm going to do all this stuff. I was almost insecurely validating the price that I was giving. And it ended up being this 2-month long process where I could have done 2 decks and been finished way faster and for the same amount of investment that was required. And so for me, I just understood that my bread and butter has been the pitch decks. It's always been the case. My coworkers have told me that. And so for me, it's kind of what you say, kind of sticking in your zone of genius. That was very important. It's all about efficiency and how much we can grow within our skill set. For me, we a few years back, we did the Gallup Strengths Assessment. And one takeaway from that I found interesting is we have so much more room to grow within our strength areas than we do to improve upon our weaknesses. And so for me, it's like, okay, yes, I think I'm really like nailing it at the deck design, but I know that there's so much more to learn and so many more areas to grow in, like animations and, all sorts of things. So that's been really fun.
I think it's so important to do the Gallup Strengths Assessment and any kind of like business personality test because you're so right. I just did this recently with this leadership group that I joined. We did the Strengths Finders thing and all of mine ended up in like a similar category. And it was like activator, woo, like magician, like all the same. And I was like, oh, these all sound so redundant, And I raised my hand. I was like, is it better to have things like spread across the different categories or is it better to just like have everything in one? She goes, well, first of all, there's no better. And secondly, like if you're all in one category, that should just affirm that you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing is like do more of that because that's your secret sauce that someone who's like deeply analytical or deeply detailed doesn't have. So like you just need to find the yin to your yang and the balance. But it's so easy to be distracted by, okay, well, I could just serve one client 50 different ways. And instead, what I think is going to give you the growth is like, I can do this one specific skill better than anyone. And I've got to imagine with a pitch deck, this like they have a deadline. Like we're racing against the clock.
They have a deadline and they have high stakes. Sometimes they are raising up to $50 million at a time. They need that deck to tell the story right. And so, sure, sometimes you'll get some emotions in that as well. But if the numbers aren't telling the story, then that's not really something I can really change. So
then how do you create boundaries around that? Because I've got to imagine the few times I've worked with a client that was on like a strict, like, we have to be at this conference and we have to have everything in line in time for this conference. And they've done like none of the copywriting, none of the product sourcing, none of the anything that they need to be ready. And they want to say it's a design problem. So like, how do you help someone who's like, we have a presentation next week, we want to hire you? What does that look like from your side?
Well, for me, I've rolled out these new additional services through one of my clients who was just in this position. She needed a deck ASAP, but she didn't understand how to put her words together. And so I had a vision strategy call with her. That was a new layer of service where I start kind of asking her questions. And I've done this kind of over the years with different executives who've had kind of different keynote speeches or whatever it might be. And so kind of asking the right questions, pulling out that story, recording that story, and then kind of piecing together the framework and the content from there. Now, I do lean on the clients to provide me with the research, etc., because at the end of the day, I always view my clients as the best subject matter experts. It's my job to just extract that and put it into the slides effectively. I also feel that it is very important. This is my biggest sticking point is the more you have on the slides, the more insecure it can make you come across. And so I firmly believe that. And unless you are just emailing it to someone and they're reading the whole thing, less is more. And I've done talks on this to my former employers' marketing teams as well, where the whole theme was cut the clutter, because the more people are reading what is on the screen, especially in this Zoom era that we're in, the less they are paying attention to you, the speaker as they're speaking.
I've got to imagine it's similar to, I love watching shows with subtitles, but you can't watch stand-up comedy with subtitles because you've just ruined your own punchline because I already read it. And so I find myself like enjoying like stand-up a lot less when the words are on screen because you're missing the delivery. So like that message has to come across. In order for a client to be prepared enough to work with you, will you take anybody like, hey, I've got a presentation next week, I want to say these 5 things, and you can go with that? Or do you require them to say like, hey, I need your outline in a Google Doc, I need your logos, I need your colors, your fonts? Like, what do you ask for? What's a poorly prepared client and what's a really well prepared client for you?
So I have a great example of a recent client who they found my website. Shout out Georgia K on the website design. They found my website. They saw my portfolio. They were like, we want to put together a whole mood board based on your portfolio on the decks that we want to do together. For me, that is like amazing. That is like a 10 on the scale of 1 to 10 on preparedness, because it also shows that they have taste and they kind of understand the vision that they're going for. Now, someone who is not the ideal client, that for me, kind of getting off of the freelance sites and really kind of scaling the agency now, it's the people who don't know what they want and don't have a clear understanding. So I do share a questionnaire with the clients before every project. They have to kind of share with me either their brand guide or the look and feel that they're trying to go for. If they do not know kind of any of that, then they're not the right client and they don't have it together. And they're going to be also the ones that are going to tend to be the problem clients. And so that's something that I definitely require. And I mean, I've said no to some really cool decks, like one for LL Cool J's big kind of music festival that they were kind of doing. They didn't have the look and feel down. And I was like, I can't create your branding for you and a deck in less than a week for less than the budget that I would normally charge. So just one of those things. You got to be firm. And I think the biggest important thing for me that has changed the game for me is abundance mindset and really being confident in that. And the more you say no to the clients that you don't want and that are not ideal for you, the more the right clients will come along.
And it's the easiest way to get burned is to take the project that you didn't want to take, that didn't have the budget, that didn't have what they needed. And you're like, well, I don't have anything right now, I should do it. I'm still learning that lesson to this day. It's like one of those things that's like, I think never changes. You all know how much I love a bragworthy brand. And when it comes to creating stickers and labels that elevate your branding, Sticker Giant is the brand that you can trust. Whether you're looking to create something for your next launch, elevate your brand, or add a little extra flair to your packaging, Sticker Giant's custom stickers and labels help you get your brand noticed in all the right ways. They've got a dedicated team handling every single detail, so you can count on Sticker Giant to bring your designs to life just the way that you imagined. If you're ready to give your brand an extra boost, go to stickergiant.com and use code KMA podcast for 15% off your order. Sticker Giant, your partner in the sticker and label business. One of the questions I get a lot from new designers is how to price things. Not to say that you have to tell us all of your pricing, but I mean, slide decks can be 12 slides, they can be 200 slides really fast, especially when you're breaking things out to like the main talking points and to have really poignant, like sticking matter where you don't want paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs on slides. Those can get really long. So how do you begin to decide the scope of a presentation slide deck?
That's a great question. It is something that I've never had a 200 slide deck. So I will say that has not happened so far. I know it does happen, and it is the reason there is such a wide scope of what clients are having to pay that I've heard. So for me, it comes down to, okay, what stage are you in? How high are the stakes on this presentation? For some clients, good enough is fine. For other clients, it's definitely not. And they, like the client I was saying with the mood board, they want a 10 out of 10. And they were like, we are willing to pay for additional scope because we understand the importance of the design. And so for me, I had to be okay with growing the team, growing the agency, with having some junior designers and with having senior designers as well to be able to accommodate the startups, because they really do need good design. Just because they don't have the biggest of pockets doesn't mean you can't find something for them. And so I would definitely say the Deckery is more of a premium presentation design agency. At the same time, we are kind of understanding where we came from as we grew up. And so we definitely still want to accommodate that. So for me, it's about not micromanaging the junior designers, because understanding that the clients are not paying for both a senior designer and a junior designer on the project, and being okay with that.
I think that's a good way to go about it too, is like you kind of siphon off who's in charge of what. Like my family's interior design agency does something very similar. There's a different rate for a junior designer versus having the principal designer on your project based on size, scope, experience, etc. Makes a lot of sense. I know you've started to dabble with AI and AI image creation because we've had conversations over the DMs. I've got to imagine that some of these startups, even if they're pre-revenue, they don't have pictures of their product. They don't have pictures of their ideal client. They don't have maybe even budget to do a photo shoot. How have you used AI to fill the gap in imagery that you need to make really good presentations?
Oh, it's been so fun. So I've had some beverage product companies where they had very specific target audiences, like the golfer men who want to have a canned seltzer with cannabis in it. So very, very specific. So kind of was able to give that to them. And then my most favorite ones so far have been the TV show series Bibles that they're pitching to the Netflixes, the Hulus of the world. That they really need something, but it's a concept. So they don't have any imagery. And so there was one that was a concept. It was basically a Black version of The Office, and essentially had all the episodes kind of laid out. And so I was able to use that in Midjourney. And this was before Midjourney was when it was still in Discord. So definitely a little trial and error, but he ended up being so happy with it and really kind of hit the vision.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a great use case for imagery. Exactly. Like, especially using the AI imagery, because you are pre-revenue, you are pre-concept. Like, how do you greenlight your vision? And we use it a lot with our clients as well, as like how to show like an activation or merch option or any kind of like set design stuff. Cause I feel like that's really hard to show vision. But yeah, I think how do you then say, okay, client, we're going to create you this AI imagery, but now we also have AI products that do build decks. Does that freak you out a little bit or no?
No. I mean,
No.
yeah, I don't even need to take the mic back for that one. Absolutely not. I mean, we don't know where the future is going. So I will never be so naive as to say it will never freak me out. But I was having this conversation with one of my designers the other day, because he was a little bit concerned about it. But as long as you are evolving with the tools and becoming the expert at using those tools, people are always going to need those premium decks that are super custom to the content on each slide. And for me, that is the differentiator. It is not a template. We're not taking a Canva template and putting your content into it and calling it a day. And that's really what the AI tools are doing right now. There are some that are getting sure they're nice looking, etc., but they're not going to move the needle.
Yeah, and I think it misses the humanness. There's still so much left in the margin with AI. Like, you still have to be a curator and you have to be an arbiter of good taste. And I think that's where people get into trouble. It's like, oh, I'm going to have ChatGPT write all my Instagram captions. It's like, sure, use it as an aid, but to use it as a substitute, it's like saying, I'm just going to feed my baby's sugar cereal for every meal of the day. It's like, will they sustain on that? Yes, like that's fine, but you're not getting nutrition. You know what I mean? Like, there's no balance in that diet. Like, if we're just going to give the like Pop-Tarts version of copywriting, like, of course it's going to fall flat. But if you can train it and work with it, and same with Midjourney, like I think now having your own like stylization and your personalization is huge, because then you can actually get known for a style, even if you're not the one like making the image, quote unquote, although you are. But same with logo design. I mean, I think you could have this debate too. Is like, oh yeah, you can put into a logo generator. It's not going to be branding. Like, there's so many, you got to hire the creative that can mishmash all the crazy ideas together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of AI logo generation, I mean, it's something that I don't necessarily want to promote, because I do think there is so much nuance of your target audience that is lost. But for the startups who are kind of at the stage of just needing a deck and they just got to have something that looks good, like my client who I had the vision strategy call with recently, I mean, she's doing kind of a big development and it's got to still look nice. It doesn't necessarily need to be the end all be all. So what we ended up developing for her out of Midjourney in 10 minutes was still a lot better than what she had currently that was on signage, etc. So it was still the same flavor, but just leveled up a little bit. And so it'll get her to where she needs to be for that next step on when she's ready to invest in full branding.
And I'm still not opposed to even using Midjourney for logos either. Like, I think that's the thing, is like the person that's looking to these tools is not my ideal client anyway, abundance mindset. And that it's really just replacing what Fiverr was. Like, the logo designers that are going to run out of work are the ones that were sending a logo flash sheet anyway and selling a logo for $7.99. Like, that's not my audience. So like, to get bothered about something that's not the people that it needs to be bothered for, it is kind of a lost cause, in my opinion. But that being said, like, I definitely use AI tools with my logo designs. I haven't sold yet or used an AI logo necessarily, but I've used it as a supporting asset. Or I've designed a logo, uploaded it to ChatGPT and said, critique this logo. What other brands does this look like? What do you think you could learn about this business based on this logo? And there's a lot of like kind of circular brainstorming that can happen with that. I've never been on Fiverr because that was the thing that I first learned. That was the thing I first learned in 2017, was like, that was the cheap way to do it. And I think that, again, that comes from like an imposter syndrome kind of mindset. It's not abundance mindset. Again, those people aren't necessarily my ideal client, but you actually kicked off a lot of your business in the beginning through Fiverr. And I think it's a good testament for why the platform exists. Can you briefly recap that story?
Yeah. So I will say that my story with Fiverr is a testament to it being an exception to the rule. I was able to get onto Fiverr Pro, and that was when it first started. And I think that was a big reason why I was able to charge the prices I was charging on the platform. I've still leveled out at some point. So that's kind of started to become something I will just automatically give to my junior designers. But it's something that eventually it ended up that I recently was named top rated. And so super exciting. And I was able to land some pretty major clients. I was able to land a Fortune 500 tech company, and then another one that's a very fast growing tech company as well. And so
just because someone is listing their services on Fiverr doesn't mean that they're not quality. And also, just because you're a business that's sourcing someone from Fiverr doesn't mean that it doesn't have potential to grow outside.
Exactly. I need to be very careful with what I say about that. Fiverr does like to really keep you on their platform. And so, it's one of those things that's why I'm so blessed and excited to grow the agency beyond the freelance platforms and having the freedom to do that when I'm not working full time for my employers anymore, and just fully a little butterfly kind of taking off and having to all of a sudden be my business development person, my finance person, all these other things, wear all sorts of hats. Of course, my hourly rate compared to one of my designers is going to be very different now. So, it's a new journey.
That's definitely a big lesson to learn is like, it's that growing pain between this is the thing that brought me up and this is now where I want to go. And it doesn't mean that you have to say no to the things that you came up on. Like, I mean, the first logos I was doing were like $800, like $500 because didn't have a process, didn't have a system, didn't have a reputation, didn't have a team. And like you're saying, like that transition from, I've got to imagine from being an employee where you're like, okay, this is my salary and this is my paycheck to now being like, okay, I'm in charge of managing this big pot of money. And like, it looks like a big pot of money, but it's not all my money because I have to pay taxes. I have to pay my team members. I have to pay my softwares, my CPA, my accountant, my all these things. And like doing the like forensic understanding of the numbers, you at least have an econ degree. I'm art history and fine arts. I did not learn any of this stuff. I am such a fish out of water. I do not know my way around a spreadsheet. But are you excited for that phase, or does it intimidate you to the point of like wanting to hire someone to manage it?
Well, I think that we will just have to see how it goes. I am very optimistic about kind of putting myself out there more on LinkedIn these days, and kind of messaging my network, posting some fun stuff. I just saw Wicked recently, and I'm going to do a whole carousel series on how that relates to visual storytelling for founders. And so I'm just going to have fun with it and see what happens. I'm luckily about to actually move to Thailand. I'm going to spend some time there. I'm going to spend some time between there and San Diego and just kind of be able to see what creativity finds me kind of traveling abroad and scaling the business from wherever I am. I can work and do my job from my laptop. So for me, I think that as long as I can handle the time zone differences wherever I am, I will be happy to kind of take on that business development. If it becomes to be too much, it's something I'm easily willing to outsource on a commission structure, you know? So for me, if something is not in my wheelhouse and I know that, then I'm very willing to outsource that. And I think that's obviously what every founder kind of has to learn too.
Well, it goes back to the strengths assessment. It's like, I know I'm good at some things. I know I'm not good at other things. I know I'm good at sales. I know I'm not good at pulling together proposals. So like, okay, I'll get the help for the thing I'm not so good at. But it's still been a learning process. It's still been kind of like okay, how do we make this thing run now? Because at the time we're recording, it's the end of the year. So I'm like looking back on how long does it take to get a lead? Because also the stat that I read recently or like suggestion tip is that as a founder, 50% of your time should be doing your job, but 50% of your job should be marketing your job and sharing your job and posting about your.
Yeah.
Some days better than others. Like I literally told Cody this week, I put on a task every single day from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I got to post something on one of the pages and just having that like omnipresence, because I think as a founder, you also get to the point where you're like, I've been doing this a long time. I'm like, oh, I don't need to do this. I don't need to post on Instagram. I don't need to like network. I don't need, like, people will find me. They know what I do now. Like, it's like that somehow I like reached a level where I don't have to. No, that is not the truth. That's not the truth. And I just recorded a whole podcast episode about all the ways to do marketing that aren't digital, because I think that's totally untapped. I've never sent out a print marketing piece. I'm not sponsoring local events. Like there's so many other like areas I haven't tapped into, but I'm curious as you're going to be like traveling and networking. I mean, not even curious. This is just a tip that I'll say right at the sign up to present at every co-working space that you go to and just say like, hey, do you guys do any Skillshare nights? Do you do any storytelling nights? Like I have a presentation, and I'll even give you the title that was mine in Bali. Mine was Why Your Logo Sucks and How to Fix It. And it was basically what it was. I was roasting my own logo. It was my old logo before I rebranded, and why my brand name wasn't a fit, and why my logo wasn't a fit, and why my marketing wasn't a fit for what I wanted to do. So if you can do a presentation that's like why your slide design sucks and how to fix it, that could actually like kill. But also, I'm curious, you said LinkedIn. Decks to me are carousel posts.
Yeah, exactly.
In a lot of ways. So do you see yourself venturing into like LinkedIn and maybe even providing some Instagram content supplementary to the decks?
I see what you're saying. So yes, and I'm open to your thoughts on this too, because I'm just dabbling now. And I think that most of my clients exist on LinkedIn and are kind of meandering around on there and seeing what carousels stick out to them. I think on Instagram, it's just a bit more saturated, as we've talked about before. And so is there really, is that going to be something that's just vanity posting? I'll just turn my like counts off on all posts. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. We'll see.
I think you could do it.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because I think most business owners struggle with content creation in the first place. And most ones that struggle with content creation have outsourced to a social media manager. As someone who runs social media management, for example, if I sent one of my clients to you and I said, go work with Sarah on your pitch deck for blah, blah, blah for this initiative that you have, and you had an upgrade option that said, if you want, we'll convert all your content into carousels for social, I would tell my client, yep, please go pay that for pay for that. Because I want the Google Drive folder that's like carousel 1, carousel 2, carousel 3, carousel 4. And especially if it's like a longer form pitch presentation or it's any kind of education or statistics or things that are like useful for the audience, to be able to just like sandwich it between a title card and an end card, like you're already there.
You're so brilliant. I think you just thought of my next gig that I'll be posting. So I love that idea. So I think that's really great. And one thing that AI, speaking of AI earlier, that has really blown up for me in the last couple years is condensing a pitch deck into a one-pager. Almost every founder who needs a pitch deck needs that one-pager summary for the people who just don't have the attention span for a full-on deck or presentation. And so kind of condensing it using ChatGPT and then also putting my spin on it, of course. Now at this point, I've been in business development for nearly a decade, and I've been kind of on these Fortune 500 pitches and kind of seeing what works. I can read the body languages when I'm on the Zoom calls silently in the background. And so that has been a huge value add to the clients as well.
Yeah, that just feels like such a natural extension. Again, you're already designing it. You've already got the layouts. You've already got in a lot of ways, like a Canva resize feature to portrait size. Seems like a pretty slam dunk. And then, of course, like fine tuning it and making it beautiful. I think you've got a lot of potential to expand, but I don't want you to I don't want to give you so many crazy ideas that are all over the place either.
Yeah, focus is key. And yeah, I got to take it one step at a time. That's what my mentor taught me. I have a lot of ideas up here for kind of scaling and doing passive income in the future, but I gotta get like a really solid base now, which I feel like I've kind of grown over the last couple years. But saying goodbye to a salary is a little bit scary. However, it is something that I feel really just so good about. I have no regrets about it because it also is that kind of fire in the belly to kind of keep you moving forward and not getting complacent. Complacency was my biggest detriment over the last few years. And that's kind of when I started freelancing and kind of doing the whole thing. That's when I kind of started to find the drive and passion and motivation back.
Yeah, I think that is so true also of people that are just our age right now. Like I think people are very if you're now a subject matter expert and your job doesn't feel challenging to you, you have to go find the challenge. Like it's not just going to fall in your lap anymore because things maybe aren't going to feel as new, or you're not doing it for the first time, you're doing it for the 800th time, So like finding like craving that. I've been craving that. I joined a lot of like leadership groups and new mentors and things like that to kind of get me going. But you had an incredible launch party, and I would be remiss to record this episode without recapping it. Tell us about your Deckery launch party and how you knew, like, fuck it, I'm just going to go for it and like have a rager to kick off this business. How did this idea come about?
So I knew that I wanted to have a goodbye party and kind of, as I'm going to start traveling a bit more after being here for so long full time. And we were originally going to just do a dinner. But, for me, growing up in a military family, for those of you who don't know, I did grow up in Thailand. And so many people in my life that I love and are supporters of me live all over the world. And so are they going to fly in for a dinner? No. Did anyone fly in from around the world? No. But from other states, yes. And so I knew I wanted to do something big to kind of represent like the 20s that I spent here. And so my old company did this yacht party with Triton Charters. They're amazing. And so I knew it was like a great experience, great staff, all the things. And then just kind of started to put the details together. And I knew that the focus was not just about starting the Deckery. For me, it was about giving back to all the people who have kind of brought me here thus far. It truly it takes a village. Everyone says that, but it's so true. And kind of through all the ups and downs, the roller coasters of emotions, kind of the second guessing yourself, the imposter syndrome. I mean, you and I have talked about that at length. And I think that is something that I would be remiss if I did not take that moment to kind of really just share everything with them. And so one of my favorite details of the party was kind of I wrote everyone little thank you notes and kind of had them branded, individually printed for everyone. And So that was really special for me.
Yeah, and fun to just mark the occasion. I kind of had the same feeling this year when I had my 10-year business party, because I was like, "Oh, I really don't want to." I was like just coming off a bunch of travel, like didn't want to do anything. Like who cares? Like nobody's gonna care. People care. Like celebrate, because that only happens once. You know what I mean? Like you only really like have this big transition in your life once. And like Natasha made such a beautiful speech, our friend Natasha. And I turned to my friend, I was like, I feel like I'm at a wedding. It's like, this is so cute.
I mean, low key, I was like, you know what? This is a tax write off, and I'm going to put my all into the details of this thing. So, yeah, my dad said some really nice words. My old CEO did as well. And so it was a beautiful day. And so excited you could be part of it.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And I'm so excited for this whole next chapter for you. It's going to be so fun to watch. I'm glad you're touching back and forth in San Diego, but where can everyone find you, follow you, work with you? Plug yourself.
You can find me at www.thedeckery.com. You can find me at sarah.mammon on Instagram, and find me on LinkedIn as well, Sarah Divya Mammon on LinkedIn.
Yay! Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for bearing with us as we did an in-person one microphone share podcast episode. If you like it, please share, send to a friend, subscribe, all of the good things, and we'll catch you next time. Bye!